So we're very pleased at the 7th International Conference on Migration and Development to welcome Theodora Xenogiani from the OECD, who presented yesterday in the data session. And Theodora, could you just say a few words about this stage of the project?
Yes, so this is a joint project with IMI and with the World Bank, and we're basically updating the database on immigrants in OECD and non-OECD countries. So I would like to talk to you a little bit about the part on OECD countries. This is a process that started some years ago, and now we have data on the stocks of migrants in 2000, 2005 and 2010. In 2000, we have a big coverage of destination countries. In 2005, we're covering some OECD-only destination countries, and this is basically because in 2005, for some of the countries there is no census information, so we're obliged to use LFS data. And then we are updating now with the 2010 round censuses and population registers across the world. And this data will be available in the coming weeks online for researchers to use.
And for the viewers, could you tell us just a few of the initial results you found from the collection from the 2010 census round?
Right. So what we see is that there is today about 100 million migrants living in OECD countries, and despite some slowdown in the migration flows during the crisis, we see that this actually stock of migrants has increased by 36% between 2000 and 2010. The increase is mainly driven by migrants coming from Asia and also from Africa, but also to some extent from Latin America. And another key evidence is that about 30 million of these migrants are highly educated, meaning they have a tertiary education, and the increase is largely driven by Asia. Actually, highly skilled migrants from Asia account for about 1/3 of the total highly skilled migrants in the OECD countries, and just 3 Asian countries, China, India and the Philippines, account for 1/5 of the total number of highly skilled migrants. Another element has to do with the labor market outcomes of these migrants. So they are more highly skilled, and actually what we see between 2000 and 2010 is that they are also doing better in terms of labor market outcomes, in absolute terms, but also relative to natives. They are basically closing the gap with native-born populations. However, what we see is a reversal of the trend in the second half of the decade between 2005 and 2010, which reflects to a large extent the changing economic conditions, labor market conditions in some OECD countries that were heavily affected by the crisis. And this has in particular affected certain migrant groups, for example, some groups of migrants coming from Latin America, but also Africa, and this is because these migrants tend to be overrepresented in countries like the US, but also Spain, that are countries that were heavily affected.
And how has the pattern of female migrants changed between 2000 and 2010?
Well, what we see is a feminization, continuation of the feminization of migration, and we also see that female migrants are more and more highly educated, which also reflects the increased educational attainment among female populations across the world.
Well, thank you very much. We very much look forward to being able to use the data in the near future.
Thank you very much.